Peace Pod. I'm Ashley.
I'm Maddie. Together we're going to find peace with each other.
We're talking about our stories so we can help others share theirs.
So let's get to it. Hi, Ashley.
Hello.
So we're going to be talking about your story today. So let's start with where you grew up.
I grew up in O'Fallon, Missouri, which is a suburb off of St. Louis.
And then how many siblings did you have growing up?
Just 2 growing up, but then I met my other 2 half-siblings whenever I was I just met the one, my youngest half-sibling, which is older than me, but the youngest one. And then my oldest one I met in 2015 or 2014, something like that.
And you grew up in Missouri for like how long until you came to Hutchinson?
I moved to Burton whenever I was 17, so in 2014.
2014. So you pretty much grew up in Missouri all your life.
Yeah.
And so I know, like, just talking to you personally, that a lot of stuff was happening, like, at that age. And so,
yeah.
What kind of stuff was going on then?
So, my first relationship was whenever I was probably like 15, and I was in O'Fallon, and he was very abusive physically and mentally, and then financially. He didn't even want me to get my driver's license and stuff like that, and he pushed me against a wall and whatnot. And so I broke up with him, and then I met this other guy that I was engaged to, and we stayed together until I moved here to Burton, and that's when I met my husband in 2014, shortly after I moved here.
Yeah, and I know, like, you did have, like, some stuff that was going on before that, like a lot of people don't realize, like, a lot of trauma leads up to, like, getting with men like that, like, having a childhood kind of like what we had, because we're used to the toxicity, you know?
Yeah. I had a pretty good childhood. My parents cared a lot. My mom went to school, and she worked full-time, and my dad was a very good worker until he got into drugs, and, that's where my life kind of changed. It's probably about 12 years old. And around 12 is whenever he started getting into making drugs and selling drugs and doing drugs. And then I was a part of 4 drug raids. So the drug raids caused like PTSD for me and anxiety about cops and what they can potentially do, because they put 4 rifles up to my head when I was 12. And after that moment, I just didn't really trust them. I didn't really feel safe. And my dad always has made me feel safe. It was just that hard times come with struggle and doing crazy things to make money. And
sometimes people have to learn a different way than other people, you know?
Yeah, and my dad he grew up in a very, I don't know, he moved around a lot and whatnot. And he also had, like, bad mental health, and that causes more drug addiction and poverty. Poverty also is like the number 1 leading cause of drug addiction in the United States. So it was just more of like being broke, so he had to do something to provide for us.
Trying to find a way to provide, but caught up in the mix at the same time.
And after the first drug raid, since he worked for his boss that we lived at his house, he got fired from that job, and after that it kind of went downhill.
And that does bring out a lot of trauma, you know, just having to watch that and discover it at a young age. And at that age, I know you were also, like, you had younger siblings, and your mom was busy with school and work, so you kind of had to step up and be the one to take care of them.
Right.
And you still take care of them.
Yeah, I was home by myself during the first drug raid. And then the last time it happened, I was just at the point where I was like, just wake them up peacefully, like, we don't have to do all this, and I just don't really trust them, and they've just never done me any good. That's just how I feel. But
yeah, and like older siblings, like, it's hard not to be protective, you know. I'm the same way.
Yeah, whenever they busted our house, I grabbed, like, my brother's blankets and a stuffed animal for them or whatever, but
what you could.
Yeah.
because they're new babies, pretty much.
Yeah.
They're your first round of kids.
Yeah, literally.
They kicked you into gear.
Seriously.
And so after that, you did those relationships, and then you moved to Burton, Kansas.
Yeah, and I moved to Burton because my dad went to prison for all the drugs and whatnot and raids that happened. So we moved here to be with my grandma, and we lived with her for a while, and then my dad got out of prison, and he doesn't make drugs or sell drugs or none of that, but who knows if anybody's sober anymore. And
it's harder to tell nowadays, seeing people addicted to drugs, and since from a long period once they're addicted to it, it's they can be a completely normal person,
Yeah.
And the more you learn about it, you discover those kind of things.
A lot of people are fighting a lot of demons that they have, and with the mental health issue comes the drug abuse, and that's where we're trying to bring awareness to drug addiction and mental health. There's actually things that can help you and guide you.
Yep.
And here, after I moved here, I had a drink. I've never done drugs. I've never done crazy drugs like everybody else has tried, but I've definitely seen it change people that I love. Yeah, I've seen drugs change people for what they're not, and alcohol has done that for me, and I didn't understand that alcohol could be as damaging as drugs could be.
Yep.
So
it's just substance abuse is,
yeah,
it's more than one thing. It's alcohol, pills, drugs.
Those blue pills that everybody has been on, they're pressed Percocets with fentanyl in them and horse tranquilizer, and they're making people go crazy.
Yeah, and they just get worse. Everybody's coming clever. They're lacing all kinds of stuff. They say anything you get on the streets, it's not
fentanyl.
good anymore. Yeah, it's killing people. People are dying. Even around here, we've had so many people,
getting arrested, overdosing.
Dying. Yeah, we've lost a lot of people around here. But whenever you moved here, you met, and you guys were, so freaking young. What, 17 you said?
I was 17 and he was 19.
Yeah. And from there, you guys have just built up.
Yeah, and now we're married with 2 kids since 2017.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's been my saving grace. But a lot of things happened before that. I found out I had a problem with alcohol.
And you had to discover who you were by yourself.
Yeah.
To understand it, and then you did.
Well, this was before that.
Before that?
Yeah, before me and were together and had kids and were stable and all that. I knew I had an alcohol problem whenever I lived with 2 of my roommates when I was 18. So me and broke up whenever we were 17 and 18, whatever, for a while, and then we got back together later. But this was the in-between, and I moved to Missouri, and I started going to school there, and I didn't really drink as much there. And that's when I was okay, so I have a problem there. So after me and talked and he got released from basic training, he convinced me to come back here, and I did. So I came back here, and ever since then we've been together.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And a lot of relationships, I've never been, in a relationship like that. You guys, no matter what, you come through the darkness, and you always build up with each other, and you guys just get better and better every time I see you guys. Knowing from 2020 to now, you've built yourself up, and you make a good life for your kiddos too.
But one thing to really remember, especially when you're with somebody that you really love, that you've been with, and you really want it to work, is to always make it based off of a friendship. And also what we try to remember is that we're always family. So no matter what, we have each other. So that's what really keeps us from splitting up, because my family is his family, and me and him are family. We created a family, you know what I mean? So that's a really key factor in our relationship.
And I've known you guys since 2020, and just knowing that I've seen you guys put a lot of trust in each other, and your relationship is just, it's strong, a lot stronger than a lot of relationships I see, you know, because you guys work with each other, you communicate with how you feel, and then you better yourself to be better together and better for your family. And so a lot of this stuff that you've been through, it's brought like problems, like mental health problems, and you dealt with, you said PTSD and anxiety, and what else?
I have ADHD, depression, anxiety, and PTSD.
Yeah. And then how did you cope with these things? Because mental health it's hard.
Yeah. So for a while I was on medicines. Like, I never took any medicines for my ADHD, but I did take medicines for like my depression and anxiety. I had postpartum depression really bad. So those things I kept doing until I realized, oh shit, this is making it worse. And I just cold turkey stopped taking them, like all 3 times that I tried taking them. And for some people it does work, but I feel like I need to do like a genetic testing to like see which one suits me best if I were to do that. But for now, I just do things like this. This is therapeutic, just regularly whenever we talk, and we don't really talk with the camera and whatnot. It's like therapeutic, talking about things that have happened to you, things that
happened to you, and then we find out what's so like how much we have in common. That's why we kind of started this to begin with, because it is healing. And just like the comments that we've been getting about this stuff and how supportive people are being, like, it helps us in a lot of ways, and that means like our family like are being supportive, and that means a lot, you know.
Yeah, it's good that the last episode that everybody's seen how your story was, and some people reached out to you and either thanked you or was surprised those things happened to you and was apologizing to you. And so I don't have a really long story, but I just have had a lot of mental health issues and drug abuse in my life. And I've personally never done drugs, like I said, but the alcohol was an issue. Me and Davin split it for a while because of that, and I'm almost 2 years sober, so gotta.
Good for you. I know. 2 years now.
Which isn't. It's not too hard for me. I just try to stay away from it and
it
try not to really
completely too.
Yeah, it makes my head straight. And since I deal with mental health issues, sometimes knowing the signs of when somebody is unstable or going through drug addiction, or a lot of drug addicts try to hide it or say that they stopped doing it or that they want to get sober, but only they can choose to get sober, and only they will get sober, and nobody
can make them.
Yeah.
No matter how much you want to try to make them.
Exactly.
Know?
And also, like, the pain it brings to other people when another person is stuck in an addiction and everybody around them just keeps living and they're just stuck in that one spot. But I empathize with addicts even though I used to not.
And I do too, you know.
Yeah.
I do at the same time. At the same time, you know, it's hard to look like at my own family members that are addicted to it right now, you know. They're still doing the same stuff, losing children, like not learning any lessons, you know. And some people just deal with life differently than like people like me and you. Like, we cope in different ways, and we've learned from watching our loved ones and watching all of that go down, addiction, everything, abuse, mental abuse. That's also a thing that messes with you the rest of your life. And just growing from that and not trying to make those mistakes again, trying to be better parents, you know.
My dad always had a short fuse, like, and I think the drugs just made it worse. Like, he just has a very short fuse. And I understand it now, even though I didn't understand it then, but that short fuse he has, I also have. And so now I'm trying to change that generational curse so then my kids don't have mental health issues because of the things that I have said or things that I have done or the things that I said I was going to do and then I don't do later because of laziness or drug addiction or work. Like, I'm not going to ever be that.
Yeah. So. And I understand that too, you know, just because, like, he's not my blood, but my stepdad raised me, and my mom, You know, I'm a mixture of both of them. He has a short fuse, and she has a lot of strength and a lot of, you know, like blindness to reality sometimes. And I get both of that mixed together, and we both know, like, sometimes I get more of my stepdad.
Emotional gangster.
Yeah, like, I mean, I'm a good person, but when something, like...
Me too. That's how I feel, too.
Something bad happens, I'm, like, protected.
I feel like I'm a good-ass person, and then people just have to pull my strings and see if I have a bad bone in my body, and I do, so stop. Leave me alone.
Like, I'm staying to me. I'm not worried about you. I'm worried about me and my beans,
also,
my family.
People are crazy. Like, I think the worst about people or any situation I'm in with random people. I always think the worst thought. And it's like...
And even, like, now, like, I'm a people watcher. I'm not, like, one of those people that are, like, woohoo, getting, like, blacked out drunk. I'm watching, like, what everybody else is doing, you know?
Yeah, making sure I'm safe because I don't know what these people are doing.
Yeah, and then next thing you know, I was actually starting to participate in their games, you know?
Yeah.
Because mental health it's a hard thing to deal with, and sometimes people are blind to what they're actually dealing with, and they're just like, whoa, I'm gonna keep doing this dumb thing, and then they're
thinking that you can drink your pain away, smoke your pain away,
do drugs,
take those pills off the street to take your pain away. You can't, because it's just gonna keep coming back until you deal with it and you heal from it and you do the work.
And piles up and then piles up, and it gets to a point where you have nothing left. You know, you think that you're going to be surviving and you're going to be pushing, but I've realized a lot in my life that, no, you're going to be broke. You're going to be addicted.
You're not going to have any family.
Nobody's going to want to be around you. You're going to lose everything that you've worked for. And we work for stuff in this life, you know.
Yeah.
No matter what anybody's gone through, no judgment, no matter, like, what job, but, like, everybody just needs to work together to become better, because... Everybody's
struggling.
Everybody is, including
in one
us.
way or another. Like, people are struggling, so we all need to give each other grace and time and let each other heal in the ways that everybody's gonna go through that party stage where they think drinking and smoking and all that's gonna help them, but in the end game, in the long run, like, it really doesn't help. And I'm 27 now, and it really doesn't help. And I just realized that, like, almost 2 years ago. Like, pills aren't going to work for me. Alcohol's not going to work for me. The only thing that's going to work for me is going through my trauma and actually talking about it and actually dealing with it, and seeing cops all the time and not getting freaked out is something I really try to do too. Like, try not to freak myself out about it because I'm not doing anything wrong.
Yep, exactly.
So...
it's just those feelings. Sometimes they just come back.
Yeah.
You know, something.
And PTSD is that. Like, whenever you see that initial thing that shocked your body, it's like your body feels the shock of that initial reaction that happened.
Feeling, everything, that emotion at the time. Like, I hear noises or I hear yells or something like that, and my heart stops. Like, it's hard to explain to people. Like, you just feel everything once again, and it's a very hard thing to deal with, you know. And a lot of people don't even realize, like, they don't realize that depression and anxiety, like, my doctor told me, depression and anxiety is also, like, it can make it to PTSD because it could be just so bad and not dealing with it for so long. And I know people that are still, like, in their 30s and 40s and still doing the same thing they were doing 20 years ago.
Thinking that it's going to help them.
Yeah, and making it all okay, you know.
If you guys know anybody who needs help with mental health, there's a mental health hotline. There's a mental health number. If you know,
I think I pulled it up on my phone too.
And we'll put it on at the end of this video. And then anybody dealing with drug addiction, drug abuse, any of that, we have a number for that also that we'll link at the end. All right.
Yep.
Have a good night.